What's up, guys? Merry Christmas to everybody out there. Gonna do a quick video. We got a short Christmas card today with just NFL and NBA on it. Even though I'm not on any of these games, I did talk about the NFL games in my NFL video as well. I talked about my feelings on all these games. I'll just rehash those. I don't think that my feelings have changed on these games, but of course, right up until game time, who knows? Because I have to pick all these games, and I'm right in the thick of it in these pick'em pools, and my picks did not do that well in the later slate of games yesterday. So I was looking. I started 3-0 and pick'em to start the week, and then it looked like I was going to be up to 8-1 or something like that. And then, of course, the Vikings didn't come through, even though debatably they did get statistically outplayed by quite a bit and shouldn't have even covered that game, but they were right there on the verge of covering and maybe even winning that game at the end. And Nick Mullins does what he does and throws a million interceptions, which also great for my fantasy team, by the way, although I think I might win and avoid the Sacco in fantasy because that's where I'm at. I'm a Christian Kirk injury away from making the fantasy playoffs, and now I'm trying to avoid the Sacco. Come on, man. So, yeah, there was that, and then there was the Jets. They had no business not getting there on that one. They were destroying Washington. They statistically destroyed them. They're winning, I don't know, 27-7 in the fourth quarter or something. I have no idea how the Jets blew that entire lead. They absolutely should have covered. Washington put in Jacoby Brissett, and I guess when you have a horrendous offensive line like Washington does, you don't want like a gunslinger like Sam Howell out there who's just throwing half of his passes to the other team. Who knew? You want a guy who does not make that many mistakes. Jacoby Brissett, Hall of Fame quarterback. So they completely turned it around with Brissett in there. I don't even know, man. I do not know. A bunch of my leans that I gave out on this show were correct, though. So the Browns, the Falcons, the Buccaneers, whatever. I don't know. I talked about all those games. My actual bets went 1-0-1, and it was all based on the number that you got, man. So hopefully you got better. Hopefully you got the best numbers on those. I think I did get the best numbers that were available on both of those. The Tennessee Titans, another one of my losses in Pick'em because we had 2.5 in the Pick'em pools. They should have won the game outright. And, of course, they give up that game-winning drive right at the end in a very low-scoring game. They give up only the second Seahawks touchdown of the game right at the end to Geno Smith there. Just miserable. But I had the Titans plus 3.5, so they covered the number for me. That hit, and they missed on the money line. Oh, well, I guess. Kind of angered me, though. And then Dallas Cowboys, they lost right at the end, too, on a final second field goal for the Miami Dolphins. Dallas, they were losing in the middle of the game. It was a pretty close game, and it looked like they were going to get there. It was kind of lower scoring than I thought the game was going to be. And then in Dallas looked like they were going to get there, looked like they were going to win by 1. And then Miami kicked the game-winning field goal right at the end, and I was on Dallas plus 2, so that pushed for me. So I did have a winning day to break that losing streak of 1-0-1 yesterday. Not a huge win, but a small win on the day. So that is the situation there. Oh, man, got a runny nose here. It's Christmas. It's not even that cold out, and I'm not even sick, but lack of sleep, man. Who knows? Well, we got the 3 games on the slate today. It looks like the Christmas card is kind of, hey, Christmas card. We're sending out Christmas cards here. And this is an ugly family on this Christmas card here. This is not a good-looking family. We got a Christmas card that's kind of mimicking the Thanksgiving cards here. And it kind of, somewhat it kind of is in a way where you have those bad Thanksgiving slates, sometimes with 2 huge favorites, and that's what we have here. I mean, I talked about these games on my video. You got Raiders Chiefs in the afternoon game at 1 p.m. Eastern. 10.5 is what the Chiefs are favored by. 82% of the cash and 73% of the tickets. So the cash discrepancy looks like it is still remaining on the Chiefs. As I pointed out, the Chiefs were like a 9.5 point favorite or somewhere around 10 when they played at the Raiders a couple weeks ago. So it's like, what is up with this line? I think that some of this line is recency bias. I think like, were the Chiefs favored by too much when they were at Vegas? Maybe. But should they be favored by this little? Like, should they be favored by the same amount at home that they were on the road? Probably not. I actually think this line might be a little bit short on the Chiefs. And I think it's based on what we've been seeing recently. Like, the Chiefs, they're not an offensive juggernaut. People are seeing that. They have not looked that great in these recent games. The Chiefs, what have they done? Last week, they went into New England, and they didn't do that well against the Patriots, although we've seen the Patriots not playing that poorly over the last few weeks. But the Chiefs were also coming off a pretty tough game against the Bills, where they wound up losing. That was a big potential like playoff preview type of matchup there. So the Chiefs weren't really in the best spot. They're going into New England, but they didn't look that good. They won the game. And they actually covered, I think, barely by like a half point, maybe with some of the numbers that were out there. But it seems to me like everybody's saying that the Chiefs are kind of in disarray. You got Patrick Mahomes complaining on the sidelines. He doesn't like his wide receivers, mostly Tony, because Tony keeps dropping passes. He can't catch anything. Everybody's talking about how bad the Chiefs are right now. I don't know about that. Like I said, I think this line looks a little bit short given that they were favored by almost the same amount at Vegas a few weeks ago. That was the game where the Chiefs didn't play particularly well, and they were losing 14-0 right out of the gate in that game. They were only winning 21-17 in the fourth quarter in that game. So even though the Chiefs wound up winning and covering because they scored 10 more points in the fourth quarter, that was kind of a close game. So I don't know if that'll mean that the Chiefs are going to take the Raiders a little bit more seriously here because of that. But also you could argue that the Chiefs did wind up covering that game at Vegas. So does that mean this is going to be one of those in-season road reversal revenge angles for the Raiders, where the Raiders will play better on the road at Kansas City? I'm not sure about that. And Kansas City does have the Bengals up next, but is that going to be a look ahead with what we saw out of the Bengals recently? It looks like the Bengals are maybe on the verge of elimination here. It looks like, I mean, they don't have Joe Burrow anymore. They just got blown out by the Steelers. Maybe that Joe Burrow magic might be waning a little bit. It looks like Cincinnati is kind of in trouble, man. They might not be making the playoffs. I don't know if that's going to be a huge look ahead for Kansas City. I don't know. My lean is slightly to Kansas City in this one, but I'm certainly not going to lay that many points, and they are still like the public team, so I'm not going to do it. And Oakland, the Oakland Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders. The other thing that I would not want, that would make me not want to have anything to do with the Raiders is what we saw out of them last week, even though, yeah, they have extra time off because they played on what did they play on? They played, the Thursday night game, but they put up 63 points in that game against the Chargers in the last game. And I don't think you want to play on any team that just put up 63 points on anybody. There's probably not going to be value playing on a team that just scored 63 points, man. Everybody's talking about that. The Raiders might be feeling a little bit high and mighty about themselves, even though it is the Kansas City Chiefs they're going up against here. I would not want to be on a team that just put up 63. And Kansas City's game against the Patriots was much uglier looking. So I don't know. That would be the way that I look at that one. The 4:30 game is probably the ugliest game on the whole slate. Maybe, I don't know, Giants, Eagles. The Eagles are up from 10 to 13.5. Looks like going through the 13.5 with 81% of the cash on them and 77% of the tickets. So I guess the cash discrepancy is on the Eagles, but it's not as dramatic as the one on the Chiefs, it looks like, I would say. And the Eagles keep going up to the point where this line just looks like it's kind of out of control, man. If we're talking about 13 and a half, 14 with the Eagles, so the Eagles, like the Chiefs, they're not really that much of an offensive juggernaut, man, even though it is the Giants, and the Giants suck. Something would have me leaning slightly to the Giants if the line getting that out of control, just because of what the Eagles are coming off of. And I guess you got to look at like playoff positioning as well in some of these games. I guess maybe the Kansas City Chiefs, they basically have their division locked up with the Broncos having lost. Like Kansas City, they're not going to lose their division. Just going back to the Kansas City real quick, but they're fighting for playoff seeding still, so they are in the mix there, even though it looks like, yeah, they're probably kind of locked into the 3 seed at this point, but there are chances, and they don't want to fall behind whoever's going to win the AFC South either. So they don't want to fall to the fourth. So there is still playoff seeding there in the mix there. I don't know how much of a motivator that is, but that's Kansas City's playoff situation there. And I guess the Raiders are somehow not technically eliminated, but come on. Everybody knows they're eliminated. Give me a break. Raiders are not making the playoffs. Sorry. And then the Philadelphia Eagles, going back to that game, they're coming off a tough stretch of games. Philadelphia, they what did they just do? I mean, they're coming off playing the Cowboys, Chiefs, Bills, 49ers, Cowboys, Seahawks, all in a row. And now they step way down in class and face the Giants. And they're on a short week. They just had that pretty tough game against the Seahawks. They lost right at the end. And yeah, they're on a 3-game losing streak. They're coming back home. I think the sentiment is like, well, the Eagles are going to bounce back here. I'm not so sure about that, man. It kind of seems like one of those like road trip return type spots in some of those other sports that you see there. Now they're having to come all the way back east. I certainly don't think they're going to lose this game or anything like that, but I don't know if they're going to take the Giants totally seriously here. I don't know if Tommy DeVito's situation is up in the air. He got hurt in the last game for the Giants, but I think he is playing in this game, I guess. But the Eagles are coming off that crazy stretch of games where they played like 5 or 6 straight games that were all like step up, like big effort games, even though they got blown out by the 49ers and the Cowboys. You could argue those are kind of like reality check type of games where they're those games where you like really get up like emotionally high and then you just get crushed and it kind of crushes your spirits. I think that's what happened in those. Now they're on a short week after a pretty hard-fought game against the Seahawks. I don't think it's the best spot for the Eagles here, even though the Eagles, they are definitely in the thick of it here. They're fighting for the division, but Dallas did lose yesterday. So I think I actually don't know which of these teams has the tiebreaker here because I think if the Eagles win, if the Eagles win, they'll be ahead of the Cowboys. And if the Eagles lose, then I guess they'll be tied with the Cowboys. The Cowboys will have the conference tiebreaker, and they're 1-1 against each other. So the Cowboys would actually be ahead of them. So yeah, the Eagles do need to win this game, but it's like, will they take the Giants totally seriously, or will they think it'll be like an easy win? Like, hey, we're back home. We're going to have an easy win here against the Giants. I don't know what their feelings are going to be. Maybe they'll take the Giants lightly. They haven't faced the Giants yet, and they know how bad the Giants are. And the Giants, I guess they're like technically not eliminated either somehow. I don't know how that's the case. The Giants are also not going to make the playoffs, but the Giants, they had a bad game last week. The Giants, they got blown out by the Saints, which was a game I was on. I think that was a sandwich spot for the Giants. They were coming off that big Monday night win, I believe, over the Green Bay Packers, and then they had this huge game against the Eagles up next. So I think that, the Giants, they were in a bad spot there. Giants, I think they're just getting a ton of points here, and I would lean that way slightly. The Eagles are certainly, the sentiment's going to be they'll bounce back. But the Eagles, they don't score a lot of points, man. The Eagles and the Chiefs really don't score that many points. The Chiefs' defense, I think, is actually better than the Eagles' defense. The Chiefs have a plus 74 point differential at least. But looking over to the NFC, the Eagles' point differential, even though the record's really good, their point differential is only plus 18. So even though they face a fairly tough schedule, and some of it's because they got blown out in those back-to-back games by the 49ers and the Cowboys, their point differential is not very impressive, man. I think the Eagles are a bit overrated, and I think kind of we're starting to see that. But I think the line is still kind of overvaluing them. So that's the way I look at those games. And then, man, this video's taking a while. Merry Christmas, everyone. And then the Ravens 49ers, the only game that's actually not an ugly-looking game here on the slate, the night game. 49ers look like they're now up from 5.5 to 6, I guess, in most places. They got 54% of tickets, but 53% of the cash. So I thought there was reverse line movement on the 49ers a little bit earlier in the week. Maybe we'll still see some reverse line movement coming back the other way. I don't know. To me, it looks like the cash discrepancy is on the Baltimore Ravens side. And with the 49ers up to like a 6-point favorite now, I think it's getting a little bit out of control. I think maybe the strongest like lean on the board would actually be to the Ravens at this point, just based on where the number is. I think the 49ers are the best team in football, and they should be power rated that way. But even though they're at home, like this line is almost telling you they're like 3.5, 4 points better, because I think they get about 2 for home field. I don't think their home field is like the greatest home field advantage. And I think in the NFL, like around 2.5 is like the max that you get for home field at this point. So are the 49ers actually 3.5 to 4 points better than the Baltimore Ravens? So I think a lot of the like best power ratings guys have the Ravens as not only the best team in the AFC, but the second best team in the NFL. I don't think so. I think the Ravens are maybe about somewhere around 1.5 or 2 points worse than the 49ers, I think is about right. So I think this, just value wise, I think this line is just too high. The 49ers, the stock can't get any higher on them, man, than it is right now. After they came out of that bye and everybody was asking what's wrong with them, when part of it was because Deebo Samuel missed those games. They came out of that bye and they just stomped the Jaguars, and they've won every game since then pretty easily, really. Winning and I believe covering every single game since then. And the stock, like I said, it just can't get any higher, man. Everybody's hailing this as like a Super Bowl preview, but it looks like to me that the public is not really on the Ravens here, thinking that this is going to be one of those like closer matchups and wanting to take the dog here. I think it looks like they kind of want the 49ers here, because the 49ers have just been covering every game, just blowing out everybody for 6 or 7 weeks in a row now after coming out of that bye. They just look unstoppable. I think something's got to give, man. This is going to be the best team that they've faced since coming out of that bye. Probably the best team they've faced all season, right? The Ravens. I mean, if you have them rated second in the NFL, then yes, that would be the case. The Ravens, they've been winning more ugly, man. Everybody's seen what they've done recently, and they had that ugly game at the Chargers. That was a bad spot for them, I thought, coming off of that big win over the Bengals. It really put them in position in the AFC North. That game was ugly. They covered on that like fumble at the end. I was on the Chargers in that one, taking 3.5 or whatever. It was a really bad spot for the Ravens. So the Ravens kind of got away with the one there, but people are going to say that the Ravens are winning ugly, man. That was ugly. They barely beat the Rams at home. That looked ugly. And then people saw them on Monday night, even though they won and covered against the Jaguars. That was ugly too. And the Jaguars had a lot of missed opportunities in that game. People saw them just getting into Ravens territory, just failing to score at all. There were turnovers in that game. The Ravens are playing a much uglier style of football, while the 49ers are just blowing everybody out. So I think that's why the public is on the 49ers here more so than they are on the Ravens. And I think that's putting the it's making it so the 49ers are the more overvalued of the two teams here. Both of these teams are, of course, in the playoff hunt as well. I mean, they're in the playoffs. 49ers have a lot of cushion, though. They've clinched the division. They have nothing left to play for as far as the division is concerned. They've already won the division. So now it's more positioning here, playoff seeding, positioning. 49ers have the biggest point differential in football, plus 191. Absolutely insane. The Ravens actually have the second best, even though people are going to talk about how ugly they are. They're plus 159 in point differentials. The Ravens, they have a good point differential, and all three of their losses were one-score losses, and two of them are those weird implosions against the Steelers and the Browns at the end of those games where the Ravens were winning deep into those games and somehow imploded right at the end. I don't get that. And their other losses by 3 to the Colts in a spot that I thought was really bad for the Ravens, or I was on the Colts in that one. So the Ravens, really, they could be an undefeated team right now almost, which is crazy to think about. So yeah, the Ravens, I do think they're still, like, I think they've been flying under the radar this season. I still think they're a bit under the radar. The Ravens, they kind of need to hold serve here against the Browns, because the Ravens have not clinched the division yet. They're in the playoffs, but the Browns won again, and the Browns are like right on their ass, really. So the Ravens do need to stay ahead of the Browns still, even though it looks like they're not going to fall behind the Browns, most likely. But the Ravens also, if they want that top playoff seeding, they have Miami to deal with too, because Miami just won yesterday. So I think the Ravens kind of have more to play for as far as the playoff seeding is concerned, although San Francisco does have to deal with Detroit, who also won again yesterday. And they got Philadelphia and Dallas over there. But San Francisco has at least clinched their division, whereas Baltimore has not. Baltimore definitely does not want to lose the division and lose one of those top 4 seeds. That would be awful for them if they fell into like one of the wild card spots. They certainly don't want that. So I think motivational wise, as far as the playoffs are concerned, I think the Ravens have more of it there as well. So I lean to the Ravens in that one a bit, and that's the way that I look at those 3 games, man. And we got the NBA coming up here. I don't know if I should comment on all 5 of these games, but the things that I noticed when I looked at the card real quick, Bucks Knicks is a zigzag spot, which is weird. The Bucks are up from 2.5 to going through the 3 with 66% of the tickets on them and 71% of the cash on them. So it looks like they have the cash discrepancy, but I would lean to the New York Knicks in this one slightly because the Bucks are coming off a game where they just beat the Knicks in a similar spot, and they beat them by 20 points or 19 points as like the same favorite, basically a 2.5-point favorite. And what's changed since a couple days ago when they won the same matchup against the Knicks? Not much. So I think the Knicks are the team that's going to have the adjustments to make here with the line not really moving, or it's moving up a little bit on the Bucks because the Bucks handle the Knicks in the last game. I would lean to the Knicks in that one because it is the zigzag, but I don't think any of these plays are really strong enough for me to get there, but I like the Knicks in that one. Just because it is the zigzag. I think the Knicks are going to have the adjustments to make there, and they have a good defense. So I think it's going to be a closer game, I think, than the other game was. Celtics, Lakers. Celtics are up from 1.5 to going through the 3.5 now, favored by a bunch against the Lakers. 68% of the tickets on them, but 69% of the cash on. So it looks like they have the cash discrepancy as well. But I think, like the Bucks, they're a public road team there. And, I don't really love those public road teams, especially when I think they're being a bit overvalued in the market, which I think is the case with both the Bucks and the Celtics here because of what we saw the Bucks do to the Knicks in the last game. But what we've seen out of the Celtics, I think these opening lines have also been around for a long time. Like they open the lines on these Christmas games way early to try to like build that anticipation. So I don't think that those line movements are recent. I think that what we see out of what we see in these lines, like the reason why the Celtics open at 1.5, like way back in the day, now they're 3.5 going through the 3.5. That's like some recency bias factoring in there. This is what we've seen recently, and the Celtics couldn't look better than what we've seen out of them the last couple games. After they lost that overtime game to the Warriors, what did they do? They put up over 140 points in 2 straight games, which I think is something the Celtics have not done, at least since like the 1960s. They scored 144 at Sacramento and 145 at the Clippers. You can't get more overvalued than the Celtics are right now, putting up that many points. And I think Tatum missed the game against Sacramento, and the Celtics still had 5 different players scoring 20 points in that game. So the Celtics, like, they definitely have a deep roster, and they're spreading the scoring out quite a bit. Tatum came back in the game against the Clippers, and they absolutely thrashed the Clippers. You can't look any better than the Celtics do right now, man. They look too good. This is the final home game of a 4-game run on the road there. I think it's a tough spot for them. Even though they should be focused because it is the Lakers and they don't really have anything upcoming. When they come back home, they face the Detroit Pistons. But I think people are kind of saying, what's wrong with the Lakers now? Because after they won that in-season tournament, man, that thing sucks. And it seems like it derails teams. Like it derailed the Lakers and Indiana. Since then, the Lakers have only won 2 games, and they've lost a bunch, 5, 6 games, whatever it is. They have not played well since playing in that tournament. Most of the games are on the road, though. I think all but one of them were on the road. So there is that aspect. I mean, they did lose the one home game to the Knicks, but that was on in a return home spot, and they had to go back out on the road again. So now, yes, it is true that the Lakers are returning home from another road trip, a 3-game road trip, and they played fairly tough against Minnesota on that road trip, and then they won at Oklahoma City, which is a pretty big win. Yeah, they just beat Oklahoma City, so they're coming off a big win, but I don't think this is a letdown spot or a distraction spot, even though they're coming back home. They have Charlotte up next. Who cares? They're playing Boston on Thanksgiving. They're going to be focused in this game, and I think I don't know if did LeBron miss any games in there? I'm not even sure if he did, but maybe he didn't. But I think they're going to be focused on this one, and they're sitting at only a 16-14 record. Now, the Celtics have the way better record. This line just looks way too easy to take the Celtics, having to only win by like 2 baskets. Like, what gives? That kind of looks like a trap to me as well. It looks way too easy to lay 3.5 or whatever it is with the Celtics. I don't think it's going to be that easy. I think the Lakers are going to show up for this one. Celtics just look way too good after those 2 just monster blowout wins. They're kind of in a tough spot because they're on that road trip, finishing that road trip there out on the Pacific Coast, and Lakers, even though, they're returning home, that win against Oklahoma City might actually help them a little bit because that breaks their like losing momentum at least, or they lost a bunch of games in a row. So I like the Lakers in that one, getting the points at home. I'm not going to be on any of these games, though. And then the Denver Nuggets are also in a return home spot from going out to the up to Canada, to Toronto, and then over to the East Coast, Brooklyn and Charlotte, with only 1 day off. So they're not exactly in the best spot either. And they swept that road trip. Now they have Golden State coming in. The Nuggets are up from 5 to 6.5 through the 6.5. But again, I think a lot of that is recency. The fact that they're up to 6.5 might mean they're a bit overvalued at this point. They get 62% of tickets, but 59% of the cash is on the Warriors. The Nuggets are on that nice win streak, 4-game win streak now. They obviously look like the much better team than Golden State, who I think is below 500. No, they're actually above 500 now. Yeah, Golden State's actually won a bunch in a row too, so excuse me. They've won 5 in a row, but people are not going to pay much attention to that because the only win that like is really a good-looking win there is the one against Boston. The rest of those games, they beat Brooklyn, who's okay, and then Portland twice and Washington. Nobody's going to care about them winning those games, so people are going to be on Denver in this one. As you can see, the public is on Denver here. They have the much better record, but this is a 1-game like road trip for Golden State, having to go out to play this game on Christmas. I think it's a focus spot, even though you don't really want to leave home when things are going well and you're winning all these games at home. I still think it's going to be a spot where they're going to go out and be focused on the Denver Nuggets there, and the Nuggets are returning home from a road trip. So I think it's a bit of a tough spot for the Nuggets there. So I'm not going to be on any of those games. So that's the way I look at all those games. Giving you a little Christmas gift there, the long Christmas video. They're not talking about the other couple of NBA games, but those are my feelings. Those were like the leans that I at least had, that I saw, the spots that I saw on the board in those games. Enjoy Christmas, man. Have a Merry Christmas. Eat some awesome food. Hopefully you were doing that last night as well, and spending time with family. Do all that and get drunk on some eggnog. Do it up, man. Live it up. Do it right. Enjoy these times, man. Life is short. Peace.